Hello friends and welcome to another session of English literature. So today's topic of discussion is heroic poem. So today I'm going to discuss what do you mean by heroic poetry, okay? So let's start the session. So Old English poetry is divided into two types, the heroic poetry and the Christian. So the sources of heroic poetry are pre-Christian Germanic myth, history and customs. Okay, so they are not the Christian, okay, they are the pre-Christian myths, history or custom which are mainly Germanic. So in its strict use by literary critics, the term heroic poetry is applied to a work that meets the following criteria. So what are the criteria? The criteria are: the poem which is heroic must be related in an elevated style and centered upon a heroic or quasi-divine figure on whose actions depends the fate of a tribe, a nation or the human race. Okay. So next, in a heroic poem, the hero, usually he is protected by gods and even descended from gods. He performs superhuman exploits in battle. Thus, the term heroic poetry is a narrative verse that is elevated in mood and uses a dignified, dramatic and formal style to describe the deeds of aristocratic warriors and rulers. So actually, heroic poetry is transmitted orally from bird to bird over generation. So it means that heroic poetries were mostly the oral poetries, okay? It goes on from one generation to another orally, and thus it became popular because it deals with the deeds, the actions of a hero, and in most cases the hero is a quasi-divine figure, okay? So Anglo-Saxon literature or Old English literature encompasses literature written in Old English in Anglo-Saxon England from the 7th century to the decades after the Norman conquest of 1066. So the main thing is that from the 7th century to the decades after the Norman conquest of 1066, the literature of this time span is called Old English literature or Anglo-Saxon literature. And heroic poetry also belongs to Old English literature, okay? So as literature is the mirror of society, so Anglo-Saxon literature frequently took up the theme of fight and hostilities, in which the nobility of a character is brought out through a display of courage, valor, loyalty to the Lord and the community, and a thirst for glory. The most remarkable heroic poetry of Anglo-Saxon period are Beowulf, which is quite popular as well as important heroic poetry. And then there are the fight at Finnsburg, the battle of Brunnen, the battle of Mandel. So they are the examples of heroic poetry. So friends, now we have to know briefly about some of the above mentioned heroic poems like Beowulf, Walder, the battle of Brunnenburg, the battle of Malden. Okay, so let's start. So at first we have to know about Beowulf. So Beowulf as a heroic poem. So as you all know that the Old English poetry which has received the most attention deals with the Germanic heroic past, which is Beowulf. Okay, so Beowulf is the most celebrated heroic poem. It is also called an epic. So the author of Beowulf is unknown. It is the most important and the longest heroic poetry, which consisting of 3,182 lines. So Beowulf relates the exploits of the hero whose name is Beowulf, who was the king of Angles around the middle of the 5th century. Okay. So now we have to know about the Battle of Brunnenburg as a heroic poem. So the Battle of Brunnenburg celebrates the victory of Athelstan, who was the king of Wessex and Mercia, against Constantine, who was the king of Scots, and his allies, which were the Welsh and Danes. And this battle took place at Brunnenburg. That's why the name of the poetry is the Battle of Brunnenburg. So this poetry bears a strongly patriotic note. That's why it attains an idealistic character of heroic poetry. So up next we have the Battle of Malden as a heroic poem. So the Battle of Malden celebrates the great spirit and heroic death of Beowulf, who was the chief of the East Saxons, to oppose a band of heathen aggressors. So apart from being merely a romance of heroism, it is also a historical poem with an epical grandeur. So as Beowulf, it is not designated as an epic, but still it possesses the materials as well as the elevations of epic poetry. So after this, we have to know about Walder as a heroic poem. So this poem is the only proof to know that the Anglo-Saxon people had any knowledge of the legend of Walter of Aquitaine. So it is the story of Walter, who is also known as Walter, and Hildegard, who fall in love and steal treasures from the court of Attila, where they were held hostage. So this poem is found in two fragments of 32 and 31 lines respectively. So friends, after all this brief discussion, we have our overall impression or a kind of conclusion that in the Anglo-Saxon heroic poetry, the spirit of heroism, the scenes of war are dominantly found. That's why Anglo-Saxon heroic poetry is also called war poetry. So the heroic sentiment of hatred or vengeance persists in them in varying degrees. The poems like Beowulf, the Battle of Mandel, these poems contain an elevated and idealism of valor, sacrifice, and chivalry. Though they are the non-Christian poems, but in some of the poems, the dedication of truth, justice, and honor is found, which is the fundamental virtue of a real Christian. Thus, the Anglo-Saxon heroic poetry have displayed the unknown author's command over the picturesque imagery, restraint, versification, and sonorous diction. So these were the informations regarding the heroic poetry of the Anglo-Saxon period. So thank you so much for watching this video, and for more videos please stay connected with me by subscribing my channels. So bye bye for now. See you in the next session.